Yo, Mrs. Weedman. 300 episodes ago, and this podcast started with a smoke session. Weeks of planning and a microphone. And somehow, we're still here talking cannabis culture today. And now, our 300th, yo, what's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
How the hell are you?
I am super excited to record this 300th episode.
I love it. Hey, all you vipers out there in the world, hopefully you're smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. Mrs. Weedman and I are about to get normal with some a la rose grown by the art of genetics by our friend Luis, who we met at the Midwest Terps event, the Illinois versus Michigan Midwest Terps. Amazing event. So I got to meet Luis, and we got a bunch of samples from a bunch of the entries. We're super stoked. We're going to share them for the next few weeks and probably the next couple months. But I wanted to start off with a la rose, grown by the art of genetics. Luis is a rare, excited hybrid cannabis strain featuring a sweet floral aroma, high resin, dense buds, likely bred from Skittles. It is characterized by a balanced, uplifting, and flavorful experience, often noted for its aromatic premium quality. The aroma and flavor, known for a distinct, sweet floral scent. The appearance produces resinous, dense, high-quality buds. The effects, generally often balanced high, described as uplifting. I'm super stoked because when you were grinding this, I walked into the room, I was like, whoa, is that the a la rose? And you were like, yep. You said it was light, fluffy, pretty,
very
and
fresh.
It was so
beautiful
nice.
little buds. They weren't little; they were actually chunky and just
trichomy.
very, very trichomy and very cool little layered colas. Just pretty flower. And I, as many of you know, have very little taste and smelling ability. But I could smell this a little bit, and when I just lit it, I could smell it for a second, and I maybe got a little bit of taste on my first hit.
Very nice.
Very nice. Very nice. So fresh.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Very nice job. Thank you, Luis, and the Art of Genetics for throwing to the cause. Your packaging was really cool. Your buds. I think you gave us like 6 different flavors or 5 different flavors, so we'll be smoking more of the Art of Genetics and plus all of the other brands and growers and breeders that threw to the cause. So in the upcoming weeks, get ready because it'll be all from the Midwest Terps show, and I'm looking forward to basically trying everybody's weed from all the contestants that entered. We had to leave a little early. Because it was our daughter O-Dog's birthday, and we did not find out who won. So we're excited to hear from Midwest Terps on who won, so we can announce it on the next show. Unfortunately, I didn't get with him today. But before we get started, I just want to talk a little bit about the Weedman 420 Chronicles. When we started this show back in 2019, on 420 of 2019, it was myself, my son Paulie, Shoddy, our producer, Dovboy and T, our tech, still to this day, my tech. And but Shoddy's been around the longest, and she stayed with me. She tried to leave a couple times, and I wouldn't let her. But when we started the show, it was a stony, baloney night in the basement of our old home, and we were talking about just doing the Weedman 420 costume, going out into Chicagoland areas and different towns and fighting for legalization. I would go and hand out stickers and hold signs up, legalize it. We would do different fun stuff and post on social media. And one night I was sitting with them down in the basement planning our next outing to do some pictures. And I said, why don't we do a podcast? And I didn't know shit from Shinola. I've listened to a few of them, but didn't know shit from Shinola, anything about how to do a podcast, what I needed to do. And they looked at me like kind of weird, like, what the hell are you talking about, really? I'm like, yeah, let's do a podcast just like once a month. Let's just get high, talk about weed, figure out a plan and see how it goes. And they were like, okay. So we wind up having a couple of get-togethers and put a show together and practice and talked and little Paulie, my son, really like came through for me and helping me learn how to become a podcaster. I'm not the best at studying, and he is a way better studier than I'm good at learning, but not studying. It's weird. And, really did some, work on showing me what to do and the equipment we needed. They helped me with that. T the Tech did an amazing job getting us started with the initial setup that we did, and Dob Boy with his fun-loving back alley deals, as we called it, really brought the vibe to the show with his fun antics and his personality, and his one-liners were always classic. And then Shoddy in the background always, like, guiding us in the right direction when we did the first 6 episodes together, and, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed those times, those first 6 episodes with them, because I was also doing it with my son and his 2 buddies who they grew up together, and Shoddy, which is gonna be our son's future wife. It was a lot of fun doing those first 6 episodes. It was a very big learning experience. We didn't know what we were doing. You can listen to those episodes. They were good. We had good content in the beginning, but you could tell we weren't there yet. It was gonna take at least 25 episodes to get our groove, right? So then our son decides to go to college, go to college in Washington, and left me. Stranded. Mm. A la Rose is tasting a la Rosie, or I should say a la Rosé. And, so Dog Boy and T did a couple more episodes with me, but then they both got jobs that they couldn't really commit to doing anymore. And then I had a couple of buddies that I knew that loved weed, Mr. G, who plays our one of my favorite songs in the world, and every year for 420, and couple shows with me. He actually did our first 420 episode too with Metro Black, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I should say our second show. We did the first show was on 420 with Paulie and Shoddy and them. They did our second 420 show, and they helped me out, and then COVID hit. So for 6 months, we really didn't do a show because of COVID, and then all of a sudden I thought we were done, and I noticed that we started getting some listeners on Buzzsprout, which is our launching platform, and I saw that we were starting getting we went from, like, 1 person to 100 people downloads, and I'm like, "Oh, shit, I need to figure this out." So one night I was trying to put a show together by myself, and it wasn't flowing right. I'm not funny by myself. I don't know if I'm funny at all, but I think I am. And, I went up to Mrs. Weedman was sitting at our dining room table, and I walked up to him like, "Hey, would you mind doing an episode with me? We're getting a lot of traction here. I don't know if I could do this by myself. Would you just do 1 episode with me? And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, listen, I'll put the show together. All you have to do is just vibe with me, smoke with me, and just read some of the notes I put for you." And you're like, "All right, let's try it." We didn't even practice. Mrs. Weeman and I didn't even practice. We got down to the basement, and I set all the equipment up, and we just started talking about the show just to get our minds clear on what we were gonna do and how we were gonna do the show. I'm like, "You listened to a couple of the episodes I did with the old crew, so it's kinda like that, and I'll lead you and guide you on how to do it." And we did our first episode together. It was episode 15. And I tell you what, when we got done, I was like, "That was actually really good." Because we've been together for a long time, when we knew each other for a very long time, we knew how to play off one another, we knew each other's faces we make, we know Mrs. Weedman is very good at reading people and reading a room, so she knows me very well. So we did episode 15, and I said, "Would you be willing," when we were done, I'm like, "Be willing to do it again?" She goes, "Yeah, I'll do next week." I'm like, "Okay, great." And this was just me trying to say, until we find somebody new to be my co-host, just just do it. Well, 285 episodes later, Mrs. Reedman is still with me at
Still
episode
here.
300, and here we are. And how much has cannabis culture has changed since
Oh, yeah.
2019 to 2026, and we're almost in our 7th year of doing this show. It'll be our 7th 420 episode coming up too, and how much cannabis culture has changed since, I mean, I've been part of cannabis culture for a very long time, and, you know, seeing what has gone corporate, see how it's gone, the culture's changed, the younger generation doing a lot of different things than the older generation used to do. It's not about just sitting in your basement anymore. It's more now we've gone to events. That's, to me, the biggest cannabis culture change is events that we've been going to since 2020,
Yeah.
and, going to these events, and people are just smoking freely in a bar or outside in a patio bar that they let you smoke at or something. You used to see people passing joints around, or you're going to, like, major events, like 500-600 people events, and it's just a straight cannabis event, dab bars, um, you know, every vendor there has got some kind of smoke thing going on, or they're teaching you about weed and talking freely about it instead of just hiding about, "You smoke weed? Yeah, I smoke weed," kind of thing. Now you're talking about cannabinoids and flavonoids and the market trends and brands and this and that, and just the medical science of the plant has grown so much since, it's not hidden anymore. We can go online and look anything you want about weed. And it's changed so much over the years, and it's really fun to see cannabis finally coming out of the closet. And then, we've got, some memorable moments on this show. I'd like to thank, you know, all of our guests who've been on our show. I like to thank especially Shawty, Paulie T, Boy. I'd like to thank Mr. G for coming on the show multiple times and playing that wonderful song. I'd like to thank Jay Cush, who helped me out a couple times, Metro Black. I especially love to thank Wes, Big Earl, for starting the Grow Hour with me, but also doing my first longest show ever, 2 hours and 45 minutes. We did a show with Mrs. Weedman, DVG, and Umami. It was our first breeder talk. I didn't know, it was like episode early 20s, and it was 2 hours and 45 minutes. It was remember that, Mrs. Weedman? We're like, "What the
Oh,
hell's going on
jeez.
here?"
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, how many other guests have we had on here? Anne, from, the
Ann Alchin.
Alchin, yes,
She's
a writer.
cannabis, culinary
Yes,
arts, so she
yes.
has
She
cookbooks.
was great.
Yeah,
Do the Pot.
the
I don't
pot.
remember her
Yeah,
name, but she was on the
another
show.
journalist
Another
and
journalist that
author,
yep.
and yeah.
And then we had that woman that wrote the movie about the young girl who passed away. I forgot
Yeah,
her
who
name
was
too.
that?
God, there's so many.
Yeah,
David Silverstein was
yeah,
actually our first
the
guest. The
journalist.
first, yeah, to
Mhm.
Canada. He was our first guest that I had on with the old crew.
We had that
Uh,
interesting guy, he's a scientist, and well, he was like CFO of this company that we ended up investing in,
yes.
and they make, synthetic terpenes and
Cannabinoids and
cannabinoids.
stuff,
Yeah.
yep. That was cool.
Yeah,
I
not terpenes, just
Yeah,
cannabinoids.
cannabinoids. Who else? Oh my gosh. Besides going to the Grow Hour too, how many breeders and guests I've had on there too, but this is about the chronicles, but we've had Midwest Terps on, we had High Focus Media on. One of my favorite shows ever, ever, ever was our 2-day 420, which
Mhm,
was very
mhm.
hard to put together. It was 2
Yeah.
days of recording, 1 day at the studio that we recorded. The old crew came on. It was our 5-year anniversary, 200th episode. Just think about that, Mr. Man,
Yeah.
200th episode, And we thought that was a big number. And, we did, we did 2 days of recording back to back, and 1 day was in a studio, and we had Mr. G and the old crew came on, and that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. Mr. G played my favorite song, The Vipers. As you all know, The Vipers is that sound everybody makes when you smoke a joint. That's why I call you all vipers out there, in case you're wondering. And then we went the second day, we went to Made Gallery with Chris, and we recorded we did what, 8 guests back
Mhm,
to
that
back
was
to
like
back to
yeah,
back. That was not
that
an
was a
easy
big
show.
yeah, that was a big one.
That was a big show and a beautiful gallery with art, with glasswork and artwork, and Chris hosted us from Made Gallery, and then we had so many guests on that day. And we also started, because of the podcast, we started 8 decades,
Yeah.
which is, I'm gonna let Miss Weeman talk about that here in a second, but we started 8 decades, our cannabis lifestyle brand, which is advocacy brand. 8 decades means, tell them, Mrs. Weeman, what does 8 decades
Well,
mean?
there's 8 decades of cannabis prohibition. We've
Yep.
been in prohibition since 1937, and I think that it's equally important to progressively move forward with cannabis as it is to reflect upon the history of cannabis. And obviously, when we go back into history, we can go way back in history to like ancient times. There's plenty of artifacts, there's plenty of written news and reports of use of cannabis or a magical plant or a medicinal plant,
Mhm.
toking and puffing and pipes and all of this stuff, right? It's
Seeds they
been
found,
around,
yeah.
right? But we can also just reflect in like more recent times, the last couple centuries that we're more familiar with the history of or more educated in the history of. And again, you can just see all of these icons and all of these people that were just warriors and prohibitionists and just pushers of the agenda of this plant being wonderful medicine that our bodies need.
Yep.
And we have all the way up to modern times to today. There's people that are continuing to do it. And so just learning all of this and trying to bring this information and news to all of you has just been super special and fun. And it's educating me. I mean, oh, I forgot I'm supposed to be talking about 8
That's
decades.
okay. Keep on talking. No, go.
But, you know, 8 decades evolved, so here we go. 8 decades of cannabis prohibition. So back in 1937, the United States started the war on drugs. Actually, the
Marijuana
war on
tax.
drugs was started a little sooner, but the Marijuana Tax
Mhm.
Act came into place, and they started taxing cannabis. And the taxes were so high that nobody could afford to even possibly be caught with this plant. And so then it became illegal and it became contraband and it became the devil's lettuce and it became just bad, bad, bad. And then it became a socioeconomic and a race driven war. And it was an attack on people of color and uh, you know,
Latinos.
all people of color,
Mhm.
and, economically, it went into your less, proficient neighborhoods, and it destroyed neighborhoods. It destroyed families. You know, some guy's just on the corner smoking a joint with his friends, absolutely not bothering a soul, having a good old time. They all get put in jail for 10 years. What does that do to their family? Well, you're looking at it because we're still seeing it. We're still
Repercussions.
seeing the repercussions of that, and it's still happening today. Even in states where cannabis is legal, it's still happening. So we have so much more to do and so much further to go. But again, it's important to focus on the history and what has gotten us to where we are. And so 8 decades is a brand that is trying to continue promoting education and educating yourself about cannabis, but also destigmatizing cannabis. We
Stomping
want
the
to
stigma.
stomp the stigma and free the plant. Those are our
And one last thing,
our agendas.
help free the 40,000 prisoners that are locked up for nonviolent cannabis crimes. Those are our
Correct.
4 things.
So those are our pillars. That's our foundation. Our foundation is we created these things. I mean, are there a gazillion rolling trays? Could you buy any rolling tray? Is our rolling tray gonna roll your joint for you? No, it's just a fucking rolling tray. But the idea is that it's a little nicer. Not in the sense that another rolling tray doesn't work, just that it's higher quality, it's intended to be like your nice tabletop piece, and it has very small branding on it, so it can be just blending into whatever's going on in your living areas of your home, and you just put your these items out, they're functional, they're kind of, eye-catching, and
Talking
they start
points.
the conversation, and next thing you know, you're advocating for cannabis, you're
Yep.
talking to somebody about it, you're having an adult conversation. Maybe you're teaching a teenager, maybe you're teaching your grandma. Suddenly you find yourself teaching somebody because we shouldn't have to stash anymore. So that's kind of the underlying message too. Quit stashing your goods, right? So we tried to create goods that you would want to have out displayed, just like you might display nice glassware or liquor bottles. Just that's kind of the agenda. Then we also want to bring energy and eyes to the need for the entire plant. You know, the whole plant is capable of doing so much. And hemp as a textile left the US and just came back in 2018. It was decriminalized. You have to go through all the hoops to be able to grow hemp, but hemp textiles are phenomenal. There is so much that the hemp plant can do building materials, insulations, clothing, textiles. So we have a hemp clothing brand that we teamed up with. They're called Young Maven. They're out of LA, stateside here in the US. They build, they dye, they cut, they label, and do everything here. But the textiles come from overseas because that's the only place that you can get hemp textiles. They're just not available here in the US yet. So we just wanted to bring attention to hemp. We want to bring attention to the criminality that still exists within cannabis and the history of all that. And we just want to bring good products that are sustainable because that's important too.
Mhm.
You know, why buy 10 or be given because someone's buying that ultimately, right? Promotional trays that have colors and designs
Paint.
all over them. That's fine. Do it. You know, there's a play. They work, right? But why buy or get 16 of those in your lifetime when you can just get one really nice tray and it's like your forever tray? So, sustainability.
Mhm.
We got to try to save the earth. So,
Yep.
we're just trying to do our little thing over here with 8 decades
The Weedman 420
and
Chronicles.
yeah, and they all just kind of go hand in hand.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So some memorable moments of the podcast and Mrs. Weedman's commercial for 8decades.com was wonderful as always. And just yeah.
Chatty, that a la
Oh
Rose.
yeah, it's very nice. I got a nice little heady high
Mhm.
behind the eyes. It's hidden
Mhm.
behind the eyes. So if I see cockeyed and I don't read straight, you know why. And so I just want to thank everybody, and we'll thank everybody again later too. But thank you all out there too. We love you for listening and keeping me going week after week after week. I appreciate you. So anyway, it is St. Patty's Day, 3/17/2026. St. Patty's Day. And this I want to talk about because it is St. Patty's Day. The old Irish goodbye.
Something I am not good at.
Yes, I have that in my writing here. Mrs. Beeman sucks at this. No,
Yeah, I do.
and honestly, it's kind of relatable if you ever try to escape a party without getting trapped for 30 minutes. And I tell you what, I can do the
30.
I could do the Irish goodbye very well. Mrs. Weedman sucks. When I want to leave, I can put my jacket on and walk out that door so quick. If it's a large party, you know, Ms. Weedman though has to say goodbye to every soul that's in the building.
Well, if it's a family
Now
party,
hold on, I'll get there.
yeah.
Even large parties though, like 50 people or more, you still want to say goodbye because in case if you didn't see anybody that you at least want to say hi to, or I'm leaving, but I didn't say hi, so I'm saying hi, give you a hug, goodbye. Mrs. Weedman is brutal when Mr. Weedman just wants to fucking slide out the door. So apparently there's a whole etiquette debate though about the Irish goodbye. And like I said, it's like when you dip out of a party or social gathering without saying goodbye to anyone, you just vanish. You're gone. You're ghost mode. I hate that personally, though. When I'm at a large party and I'm with friends and a friend dips, and I always say to them like, "Listen, you don't have to say goodbye to anybody else. Just come up and say, 'Hey, I'm out,' and go. I understand you want to leave, or when you get home, send me a ghost symbol so I knew you ghosted me." Kind of thing. It's just a dad to me, I guess, you know? So, but there's a lot of people that have done this move. You hit the bathroom, right? You grab your coat, and suddenly you're halfway home before anybody even notices, or you could be even on your couch smoking a joint before anybody even notices. So, but the etiquette, though, experts say, though, they say it's considered rude, though, in small gatherings because, like, how would you feel, Miss Wee, man? Like all of a sudden you had like
Yeah.
10 people over for dinner, and
You're like, "Wait a minute, it seems like there's not
all
where
of a
is
sudden
everybody?"
Paulie's gone without saying goodbye. That's what they say improper to
Yeah,
do. That's not
I agree.
yes. But because the host would feel upset, like, "They didn't like my food? Did I smell? Did my house not look nice?
Did something go
Did I forget
wrong?
to
Did I
clean the
say
toilet?
something? Did
Did
I
I leave
do
a skid
I'd
mark or
go in
something?"
my
Yeah,
head and be like,
that's
"Oh
what
my
I'm
god, I
saying.
totally what did I say? Did I say something? What did I do?"
No, but it is acceptable, though, at huge parties where people aren't even know you're gone.
Yeah,
And then a large parties could take you a fucking hour to 2 hours just to say goodbye if you wanna say goodbye to everybody.
yeah, that's the
I
truth.
just find the host and say goodbye and I dip.
Right.
And if anybody catches me, I'll wave,
Mhm.
while I'm at the door, but slipping out is kinda easy though in big parties though. You can know what most people won't even notice. Like, "Oh, where's Bob?" "Oh, fuck it, he's probably gonna get a drink." Next thing you know, the party's over. "Oh, he must have went home." Whatever, you know? But I feel like a lot of people listening right now absolutely have pulled this Irish goodbye. I worked with somebody who
Yeah.
was fucking great at it, and I'd
Yeah.
get so mad. Yeah. Yeah, just
I
n
know somebody.
oh, drive me nuts. But if you just kinda look at your friend and say, "Hey, are you ready?" kinda thing, and the next thing you know, you're kinda like give the old side eye, right? I do that to you and you never
Yeah.
fucking listen.
Be like, "Hold on a
R
minute."
exactly. but you guys are but kinda like you're in the car, that's kinda like how it goes with the Irish goodbye when you're with yourself or when you're by yourself or with a friend that kinda knows, like, "Hey, I'll let you know when it's time to go. I'll give you the old fucking
Burp.
like,
I'm gonna walk by and give you a
yeah.
nudge.
So, have you ever pulled the Irish goodbye though, Mr. Weedman?
I know that we have, but
Oh, I know I
big
have.
I would never do it at a small party, but I think we've done it at big, like, holiday get-togethers or, we've done it at weddings, just dip out. Bye.
Yep.
We've done it, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't
You're
I think I
you're
might
terrible at it though.
I am terrible at it.
But, like, I know there's a lot of like I said, I know one stoner and I know a few other stoners out there that have mastered this exit strategy.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
mastered
I know who
this.
you're talking about.
Yes, you know who I'm talking
Yes, I
about?
do know who
Yes,
you're talking
yes,
about.
yes. Drove me nuts. Like, I remember I used to
You
tell him,
used to
like
get mad.
I'd get mad at him. I'm like, You don't have to say goodbye to anybody. You don't even have to say goodbye to me. Just give me a fucking nod that you're out
Just
so I
so I
know."
know.
Because we were drinking and smoking
Right.
weed, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like, I
You
from
kinda wanna know where your head count, like,
Yes.
yeah.
Right.
Where's
Or just
everybody
text
at?
me a ghost.
Yeah.
I would always say to them, like, "If you don't wanna come say goodbye, I'm
Ciao.
fine. Just text me while you're in your car, a ghost,
Mhm.
or a home when you're home, just so
Right.
I'm not worried." The dad in me, you know? So, but yeah, the old Irish goodbye. Happy St. Pat's, everybody who celebrates it out there. Yeah, Chicago, though, here on Saturday, they turned the river green, and I saw somebody jump in it on TV.
Oof. I saw that too.
Ooh.
Crazy kid. Did he come back
Oh,
up?
I have no
Ugh.
idea. I just saw the jump into the
He
water.
probably
Ugh.
imagine that green paint, like, in your
Fuck the green
pores.
paint. You know how fucking
That
cold that water
dirty,
is?
cold,
Cold. That
dyed.
water's still
There were,
probably
like, so many
35
reasons not to do
that
that.
water's still probably 38 degrees right now, 40
Yeah.
degrees. Oh,
Yeah.
screw that. Ugh,
Oof.
no thank you. Anyways, happy St. Pat's Day, everybody.
Yeah.
You ready to get the show started?
I'm ready.
All right. All right, everybody. This one gets a little science nerdy, so stick with me here. It's actually really interesting, though, if you look into the medical side of cannabis. This article comes from the Journal of the MDPI, published in the International Journal of Molecular Science, and the study is titled A Glucose inhibitors from the leaves of cannabis sativa. Structure, activity relationship, kinetic investigation, and molecular docking. So nerdy. Now, in plain terms, what these researchers were looking for at is whether compounds found in cannabis leaves could help block an enzyme called aglucosidase. That enzyme is important because it plays a role in breaking down carbohydrates and glucose in the body. So when scientists talk inhibiting that enzyme, they're basically exploring ways to slow down blood sugar spikes, which is a big deal when it comes to things like diabetes. So the research team took a deep dive into the chemistry of the cannabis plant, specifically compounds isolated from the leaves. Remember, what did Mr. Weedman always say? There's angels in those leaves. And they identified around 30 different cannabinoid related compounds. Out of those, several showed the ability to inhibit that aglucosidase enzyme. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The compound that really stood out in the study was cannabinol derivative called 8-hydroxycannabinol. According to the research, that compound showed the strongest enzyme blocking activity in their test. In fact, it worked through something called an uncompetitive inhibition mechanism, which basically means it binds to the enzyme in a way that changes how the enzyme works rather than just blocking it outright. The team also looked at the structure activity relationship, which is a fancy way of saying they studied how small changes in the molecular affect how powerful it is. And what they found is that when cannabinoids have extra phenolic hydroxyl groups and a larger aromatic ring structure, their ability to inhibit that enzyme gets stronger. In other words, tiny tweaks in the chemistry of cannabinoids could make a big difference in how effective they are for potential medical applications. Now, to figure this out exactly how these molecules interact with enzymes, the researchers use molecular docking and molecular dynamic simulations, basically computer modeling, and let scientists see how molecules fit together at the atomic level. What those simulations showed is that these active cannabinoid compounds bind very stably to the allostrict site of the enzyme. That means they attach to a different spot than the usual active site, but still manage to influence how the enzymes functions. And this is important because targeting those alternative binding sites can sometimes lead to more effective and more selective drugs. Now, the researchers did point out that the compounds they studied had limited structural diversity, meaning there's still a lot more chemical space to explore when it comes to cannabis derived molecules. So, one of the big takeaways from the study is that scientists could potentially modify or synthesize new versions of these cannabinoids, things like halogenated or esterified derivatives, to make even stronger enzyme inhibitors in the future. And that's where this research starts getting really exciting because what it suggests is that compounds from cannabis sativa, even parts of the plant people often overlook, like the leaves, could serve as a building block for future anti diabetic drugs. Now, we're still in the early stages of the research territory here. This isn't a medical treatment yet. Yet. But it adds another piece to the growing body of evidence showing that cannabis is a chemically complex plant with a lot of untapped pharmaceutical potential. So whether you're taking cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, esters, or all the other compounds inside the plant, science keeps on discovering new ways these molecules might interact with the human body. And honestly, that's one of the coolest parts about watching cannabis research evolve in real time, Mrs. Weedman. Who knows? One day, a compound discovered in a cannabis leaf might end up inspiring the next generation of metabolic or diabetes therapies. Not bad for a plant that people used to say had no medical value. And that's the thing about cannabis science. The more research study the plant, the more complicated and interesting it gets. So shout out to the scientists doing the lab work while the rest of us are doing the field testing, Mrs.
Yeah,
Weedman. And I tell you what, Mrs. Weedman, this is the kind of wisdom you and I get after 300 episodes of the Weedman 420
for
Chronicles
sure, for
right there,
sure.
right?
That's right.
300 episodes. And now, from Mrs. Weedman's first article of our 300th episode, marijuana can help get these tips, get these hips, tips, bodies, and nips to get that spring body. Tell us about it, Mrs. Weedman.
Not really all of that, but okay.
No? Not about the nips?
No.
Damn.
Today we're getting into something a lot of people start thinking about this time of year, that spring reset. You know the vibe. Weather warming up, hoodies coming off, people trying to feel a little bit better, move a little more, maybe tighten things up before summer hits. This article comes from the Fresh Toast, and it's about how cannabis might actually fit into that whole get your spring body right routine, not as a shortcut, but as a tool. Now, first things first, they make it clear. So we'll keep it real here too. Cannabis is not a magic fix. You could still need, you will still need your diet, your workouts, and your consistency. They all might need to be tweaked, but this is where weed might come into play by helping you stay on track with those habits. One of the biggest areas they highlight is recovery. Anybody who's been back in the gym after long breaks knows the soreness hits differently.
Oof.
We're talking stiff, tight, questioning your life choices kind of soreness. Been there. Cannabis, especially compounds like CBD and THC, interact with your body's endocannabinoid system, which can help regulate pain and inflammation. So, what does this mean in real life? Some people are using low dose cannabis or topicals to ease their post workout soreness, helping them bounce back quicker and stay consistent instead of skipping leg day for a week, because consistency, that's everything. Next up, sleep. It's huge. You can work out all you want, you can eat clean, you can do everything right, but if your sleep is trash, your results are going to stall. Your body needs rest to repair muscle, balance hormones, and all of that behind the scenes work that happens. According to the article, a lot of users say cannabis helps them relax and fall asleep faster. And better sleep? That means better energy, better workouts, and honestly, just feeling like a human again the next day. Now, let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention: stress, because stress will quietly wreck your progress. Emotional eating, low motivation, skipping workouts, it all starts stacking up. They point out that cannabis may help some people manage stress and stay more relaxed, but there's a balance. Too much THC, especially for certain people, can actually increase anxiety. So, it's that classic rule we always talk about: start low, go slow, and know your body. Then there's the whole idea of mindful movement. And this part is kind of interesting. We're not talking about going in and maxing out your bench press. We're talking yoga, stretching, walking, maybe even a light jog. Some people say low dose cannabis actually helps them feel more connected to their body. Better focus, better breathing, better form. And honestly, that mind body connection, it's underrated, and it's how you can avoid injuries and actually build something sustainable. Let's keep it real though. There are downsides too. The big one: munchies.
Mhm.
You can have the cleanest meal plan in the world, but if you're smashing snacks at midnight, it's going to work against you. The article suggests planning ahead, having healthier snacks ready, and even choosing strains that don't hit your appetite as hard. Also, they touch on lung health. Smoking anything can impact your cardio performance. So, if you're already focused on fitness, you might lean toward edibles, tinctures, or other non combustible options. And that's really the theme of this whole article: being intentional. Cannabis isn't the main character in your fitness journey, I'm sorry. It's more like a supporting role. It might help you recover better, sleep deeper, manage stress, and stay consistent, but it's not replacing the work. And as legalization keeps expanding across the US, we're seeing cannabis move into that wellness conversation, not just recreation, but how it can fit into your everyday routine. So if you're heading into spring trying to level it up a bit, feel better, move better, maybe look a little sharper, this is another angle to think about. Not as a shortcut, but as a tool. Use cannabis the right way, and it might help you stay locked in.
Stay locked in, everybody.
Lock it in.
I was getting dressed before the show, and I just had to have Mrs. Weedman, like, look at my butt. Look at my butt, Mrs. Weedman. I've been working out every day since, like, the 2nd week of
Look
January.
at my
Look at
butt.
my
Look
butt.
at my
Look at it.
butt.
I've been working out. I've been squatting. I've been doing squats, and I've been doing the rebounder, and, as she was laughing.
Not at your butt. Your butt is cute
Yeah, that's what you were laughing because I came out
because
with
you
my
came out
yeah.
with your butt out.
Oh my goodness. All right, everybody. This one comes from the Fresh Toast, and the article is called "The Workplace is Quietly Adapting to Cannabis." And this one is interesting because it looks at something we don't always talk about in cannabis culture: the workplace. For decades, the rule around cannabis at work was pretty simple: zero tolerance. And THC showed up on a drug test. That was it. No job, no second chances. But according to this piece from the French Toast, the long-standing approach is starting to quietly change across the United States. And the shift is happening for a few different reasons. First off, cannabis laws have changed dramatically over the past decade. Most states now allow some form of legal cannabis use, whether that's medical marijuana or full adult use legalization. Because of that patchwork of laws, companies are starting to rethink how they approach things like employee policies, drug testing, and workplace culture. One of the biggest changes involves pre employment drug testing. Yes, I will tell you a story real quick. I got hired at a brewery. I've talked about this brewery multiple times. I got hired and I had to do a drug test, but it wasn't your standard go take a pee in a cup and give it to the person and, hopefully you pass, right? It was, let's get in the car. We're going to go for a ride because we can't smoke on the brewery ground. So we're going to go for a ride, light a joint, and smoke a joint at a park. Bullshit, get to know you a little bit and see how you feel and go for a walk in the fucking forest. And that's your fucking drug test. That was my drug test.
Oh, to see if you can do drugs.
Yeah, see if I can smoke weed and hang and be able to talk while I'm
Can
on
you
weed.
hang?
Yes. So that was my drug test. So for years, it was standard practice for companies to test job candidates for THC. And if cannabis showed up up in the test, even if it was legal in the state, the candidate could get disqualified immediately. But now more employers are quietly removing cannabis from their drug testing panels altogether. And honestly, part of the reason is just simple economics. The job market has been tight. And companies competing for skilled workers are realizing that strict cannabis testing can shrink the hiring pool. In industries like tech, marketing, hospitality, and creative work, employers are starting to recognize that someone does off the clock might not have anything to do with how well they do their job. Yes. We've been saying that for centuries, everybody. All of our stoners have
Mhm.
been saying that, burners and potheads. Now, at the same time, some states and cities have actually pushed this change forward with legalization. In certain places, laws now restrict or even ban pre appointment marijuana testing for jobs that aren't considered safety sensitive. So basically, the rules are evolving. But here's where things get interesting. The conversation in many workplaces is shifting away from whether someone has THC in their system and moving towards a much simpler question: are they impaired while doing their job? That's a big difference because, unlike alcohol, THC can stay detectable in your body for days or even weeks after the effects are gone. So, a positive drug test doesn't necessarily mean someone is actually high at work. That's why some companies are now exploring impairment focused policies, looking more at employee performance, behavior, and safety rather than just the presence of THC test. And culturally, things are shifting too. In a lot of workplaces, cannabis is slowly starting to be viewed more like alcohol, something adults might use responsibly outside of work hours, but not during work or while performing their duties. I am one of them. I don't really smoke while
Mhm.
I work.
Mhm.
I'll smoke, I do the work and get the reward. I've been saying that for years. You know, now if it's like a bullshit kind of work thing, like an event, oh yeah, that's a different story because everyone's smoking, everybody's high. That's a different story. But when I'm behind my computer or driving long distances for work, I wait till I'm done. That's just me. So, now obviously there's still plenty of industries where strict policies remain, especially jobs involving heavy machinery, transportation, healthcare, or public safety. But in other sectors, especially creative fields and tech, cannabis is increasingly part of a normal conversation. The article even points out that cannabis beverages and low dose products are starting to show up in social settings and networking conversations among coworkers. And another factor playing into all this is the rise of the remote and hybrid work. When people aren't commuting in a traditional office every day, the line between personal time and work time can blur a little. So HR departments are focusing less on what employees do after hours and more on whether they can perform their job safely and effectively. But here's the challenge for companies. Human resources departments are trying to navigate a pretty complicated landscape. Federal prohibition, state legalization laws, insurance requirements, and workplace safety rules all at the same time. So, what we're seeing isn't a loud revolution. It's more of a quiet transition happening behind the scenes. Instead of blanket bans on cannabis, many workplaces are slowly moving toward policies focused on responsibility, safety, and job performance. And for employees, the funny thing is, a lot of people might not even realize this shift is happening. But across the country, companies are gradually adapting to a reality where cannabis isn't some fringe topic anymore. It's just another factor shaping how modern workplaces operate. And honestly, if you've been watching cannabis culture for the last decade, the kind of change probably isn't surprising. 10 or 15 years ago, the idea that companies might stop testing for THC would have sounded wild. Right, Mrs. Weedman?
That's right.
Crazy. Crazy. I mean, like, I've been, I've had a job for a very long time. I'm an old fucking fart. What do you want me to tell you? And I came from the bar industry for a very long time, so I was always around. Weed was always a part of our after work, but I knew guys that couldn't work without it. They couldn't deal with 500 people coming to the bar, coming,
Mhm. I bet.
they
Yeah.
had to go smoke,
Mhm.
and you would know when they were going to smoke. Besides smelling, reeking like good weed, and I'd be like, "Damn, I want to smoke afterwards." Like, "Dude, smoke now." I'm like, "No, 'cause I'll stare at my fucking computer screen for an hour, wondering what my life fucking is gonna be like tomorrow," kind of thing. I've done it. I tried, and I remember one time I got smoke. I got it was I forgot the name of the band, but it was a bunch of like fucking like it was a under all age show, and it was a bunch of like 15, 16, 17-year olds for this fucking punk band. And I remember my boss was like, "Hey man, you're hungover. Why don't you smoke, man? And you have to deal with all these kids' parents pissed off because they're here." Um, I said, "All right." I'll never forget this. I went and got high with him. I came back from behind the bar, and I remember just sitting there, and I think I didn't move for like 30 minutes. I think I was just like, and I
Paralyzed.
think a parent poked me on my shoulder. She goes, "I've been standing here for like 15 minutes. Are you gonna help me?" I was like, "Huh?" And she just started laughing. So she knew, she saw my eyes. She just started laughing. And she goes, "Don't worry, I'm a mom. I smoke all the time because I can't deal with my damn kids." And started laughing. But it was like, I remember that like I was st I was just so baked, and, it was just I was Lucky Boy Confusion was the name of the band. I just remembered. And, I remember that I was miserable. It was a bunch of kids screaming and yelling, and here I am going, "This being stoned right now sucks. I wanna be
Right.
home and
It was
stoned and enjoy."
terrible.
Oh my god, it was brutal. Oh, so how women's health is shaping the future of medical cannabis, Ms. Weedman?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
All right. This article is interesting because it taps into something the cannabis space hasn't always done a great job with, and that's women's health. This piece comes from Forbes and it breaks down how women are actually helping shape the future of medical cannabis, not just as consumers, but as patients, pushing the entire system forward. And when you really think about it, it makes sense. For a long time, women's health has been under researched, underfunded, and honestly, under listened to. A lot of conditions, especially things tied to hormones, reproductive health, and sexual wellness, either don't get enough attention or don't offer great treatment options. So, what's happening now? More women are turning to cannabis, not as a trend, but as a solution. The article points out that for many women, cannabis is less about lifestyle and more about relief. We're talking chronic pain, hormonal issues, anxiety, sleep problems, things that traditional medicine hasn't always handled well. And because of that demand, it's starting to push the industry in a new direction. One of the biggest shifts, more targeted research. Historically, most cannabis studies, and honestly, a lot of medical research in general, have been based on male subjects. I don't know if people knew that, but I found this out, I think, last year that generally speaking, when things are tested on humans, those humans are only male subjects because females have hormones and hormones can impact the response your body might have to something, the mood you're in that would then have a reaction to whatever it is that you're testing. So, generally speaking, these things for years and years and years have been only tested on men. So there could be complete differences in how these same things, whether it's fabrics, whether it's skincare products, medicines, they could be totally different for us. Like there maybe needs to be completely different formulations of things because of our hormones.
Yeah.
So now there's a growing push to understand how cannabinoids actually affect women differently. Because the reality is, hormones matter, body chemistry matters, and women can respond to cannabis in completely different ways than men. We're starting to see early research come out in areas that were barely even talked about before. For example, the article highlights a preliminary clinical trial showing that medical cannabis may improve sexual function and orgasm outcomes in women. Now, that's still early stage research, nothing definitive yet, but it opens the door to something bigger. It shows that cannabis could potentially play a role in areas of health that have been ignored for way too long. And that's kind of the theme here, filling the gaps. Another big issue they bring up is access and recognition. Even in places where medical cannabis is legal, a lot of programs don't specifically account for conditions tied to women's pelvic or sexual health. So, you've got patients out there dealing with real symptoms, but not always having a clear pathway to legal treatment. On top of that, there's still stigma, especially when it comes to women using medical cannabis. And that stigma can make things different. It can affect how seriously patients are taken, how comfortable they feel talking to their doctors, and whether they even seek treatment in the first place. Here's where things are shifting. Women aren't just participating, they're influencing the market. They're driving demand for better products, more precise dosing, different delivery methods, formulation designed for specific needs like pain relief, sleep, or hormonal balance. So instead of this one size fits all approach, the industry is slowly being pushed towards something more personalized. And honestly, that's where cannabis as medicine will really start to level up. Because it's not just about THC percentage, It's about outcomes. It's about, does this actually help people feel better? But we've still got a long way to go. The article makes it clear research is still limited, especially when it comes to long term safety and consistent dosing for women. There's variability in how products are made, how they're used, and how people respond. So right now, it's kind of that in between phase where the demand is strong, the early data is promising, but the science is still catching up. But if you zoom out, the bigger picture is this. Women are helping move cannabis from a general wellness product into a more serious, more nuanced medical conversation. They're asking better questions, they're demanding better research, and they're pushing for treatments that actually reflect real life experiences. And that kind of pressure, it's what changes industries. So, as medical cannabis keeps evolving, don't be surprised if women's health ends up being one of the biggest forces shaping where it goes next.
Love it.
Yeah.
Very interesting about what you've talked about this on the show before too. The doing all the testing on men, you know,
Mhm.
it's crazy,
Yeah, it
crazy.
is. I never thought about it. It makes complete sense, but I
Yeah,
never thought about
yeah,
it.
it's nuts.
Yeah.
So good job, Mr. Weedman.
Thanks, Mr. Weedman.
Political state and business news. Gen Z is reshaping the cannabis market, especially when with vape pens. In California, vapes are actually started outselling traditional flower, with younger consumers leading the charge. Data shows that Gen Z spends about 30% of their cannabis money on vapes, drawn to convenience and discretion. So, yeah, the new generation isn't rolling joints, they're hitting carts. Florida Supreme Court just rejected an appeal from Smart and Safe Florida campaign that tried to restore more than 70,000 disqualified signatures for the marijuana legalization initiative. With the court refusing to hear the case, the campaigns they've like refused to hear it, which is the worst part. The campaign's 2026 ballot push is basically done, meaning Florida voters won't get another shot at legalization recreational cannabis that in 2026. So, leaders from the hemp and marijuana industries are actually starting to agree on major federal policy issues. Through a coalition called the Commission, through representing thousands of cannabis businesses, are working towards unified regulations for cannabinoids instead of confusing hemp versus marijuana divide. Basically, the industry might finally be learning to stop fighting itself. Finally, well, how long we've been saying this? Come together right
Right
now.
now.
You know what I'm saying? We do it together as one plant. It's one plant. We all make money on this. We all make
Mhm.
a good living. How long has
Mhm.
Mr. Weedman been saying this? It's not
Yep.
about you trying to think you're becoming a billionaire. This is a plan for everyone to make money at. Not just you're pissed off because hem's selling drinks and they're not. Man, fuck that shit. It's all about making money. We all can make a living on this. The world will be a better place. A top Republican lawmaker in Tennessee says federal marijuana rescheduling could finally open the doors for medical cannabis in the state. House Majority Leader Wilhelm Lamberth says moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 resolves some of the biggest concerns and can put doctors in charge of deciding patient use. So, yeah, even Tennessee might be warming up. Colorado weed prices just hit a new sad low. The state's average wholesale price for cannabis flower has dropped to around $648 a pound, way down from the 1700 during the 2021 pandemic boom. Growers say years of oversupply and falling sales are crushing the market. So, yep, cheap weed for consumers, but rough times for cultivators. Texas is about to ban the sale of smokable hemp products, including popular THCA flower, which we all know turns into THC once you light it up, starting March 31st. New state health rules now count THCA as total THC, closing the loophole that allowed hemp joints to be sold legally. Edibles can stay, but smokable products gone. So yeah, Texas basically said no joint for you. Two Dakota nations in Minnesota, the Shakopee Metawakanton Sioux community and the Lower Sioux Indian community, just signed a new cannabis compacts with the state. The agreements allow tribal governments to regulate and sell cannabis under their own system, with according to the Minnesota's market. Brings the total number of tribal state cannabis agreements in Minnesota to 9. Pretty big step for the tribal cannabis. A new Senate amendment could finally let people working in the legal cannabis industry qualify for federally backed mortgage loans. The proposal says income from state legal marijuana businesses should be treated like any other legal income when applying for home loans. So yeah, selling weed might finally count when you're trying to buy a house. A small but growing number of licensed marijuana shop owners in Illinois are calling on the state to change course on an unclear rule change published in December, warning that allowing more dispensaries to open shop closer together could be their death meal. I kind of agree with that because it's just like a liquor store in every corner. Way
Mhm.
too many.
Mhm.
No one we want everyone to make money at this, but we don't want people going out of business because there's too much
Right.
competition. Competition is good, but too much competition, not enough people
No,
to smoke.
not great.
Right. Um, family behind the famous Vlasic Pickles is now in the cannabis game. Willie Vlasic, great grandson of the Pickle Empire founder, runs Vlasic Labs, selling CBD tinctures, gummies, topicals, and even dog treats
Mm.
in about 200 Michigan dispensaries. So, yeah, the Vlasic name might soon mean pickles or weed. What was the commercial with the stork? He would bite into the Vlasic pickle. Remember that? Do you remember that?
Yeah. What he had a
It was
saying
all
though.
about the crunch of the pickle, and I
Yeah.
can't remember the fucking saying. So
Hmm.
I'll look it up while you're talking about
Okay.
your news. Massachusetts cannabis regulators say they want to speed up receiverships for falling marijuana businesses as more companies shut down across the state. With the market dealing with oversupply, falling prices, and mounting debt, officials are looking for faster ways to transfer struggling licenses to new operators instead of letting shops sit closed. Yeah, the market correction is fucking real, everyone.
Mm.
And now passing the joint over to you, Mrs. Weeman, while I'm looking up that classic Vlasic saying commercial.
Yep, I've got some more political, state, and business news. Starting with Kentucky, their new medical cannabis program is officially rolling out, but businesses say the launch has been slow and limited. Right now, there's only one approved processor and just a handful of dispensaries, which means product options like edibles and vapes are scarce. For now, patients mostly have flower for vaporizing, not smoking. Yep, the program is warming up very slowly. The IRS says cannabis businesses can't ask a court to do an imaginary review of federal marijuana rescheduling just to escape the brutal 280E tax rule. A New Mexico company argued rescheduling should change their tax schedule, but the IRS says no. Since marijuana is still Schedule 1, the deduction ban still applies. Of course, Uncle Sam always wants his cut. Boston cannabis shops are feeling the pain as prices crash to rock bottom levels. The average gram in Massachusetts has dropped to around $4,
Oof.
more than a 70% drop since legalization began. Great news for consumers, but growers and dispensaries say oversupply and brutal competition are squeezing profits, causing layoffs, closures, and regulators considering a pause on new grow licenses. Portland is home to one of the largest cannabis packaging recycling programs in the state, where companies collect used plastic weed containers from dispensaries and turn them into things like nursery pots and other recycled products. With all the packaging rules in legal cannabis, that's a lot of plastic. At least someone's figuring out how to give those jars a second life. The Hawaii Senate just passed a bill allowing seriously ill patients to use medical marijuana inside certain healthcare facilities, including hospitals and long-term care settings. The measure is meant to help terminally ill patients and people over 65 with chronic diseases keep access to their medicine while receiving care. We're starting to see it even in hospitals as they are slowly adapting to cannabis. Oklahoma's medical marijuana industry could face an uncertain future after Governor Kevin Stitt suggested voters revisit the legality of medical cannabis statewide. Stakeholders say that would shake an industry thousands of people work in and that's generated millions in tax revenue, while critics argue illegal activity remains a concern. Wow, Oklahoma's cannabis future just keeps getting more interesting. Georgia lawmakers just passed a bill aimed at easing access to the state's medical cannabis program. The legislation would allow patients to use vaporized cannabis and expand qualifying medical conditions, helping modernize Georgia's pretty restrictive system. The bill passed the House with strong bipartisan support and now heads forward in the legislative process. Slowly but surely, the South is loosening up. The U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals just ruled that Dormant Commerce Clause doesn't apply to state cannabis markets, basically shutting down lawsuits claiming states unfairly favor local marijuana businesses. The court says since cannabis is still federally illegal, interstate commerce protections don't apply. The ruling also creates a split with other federal courts, meaning the Supreme Court might eventually have to step in. Tennessee regulators say they've found more than 650 stores selling hemp derived THC products without a license. The Tennessee Alcoholic Beverage Commission inspected over 4,400 shops after taking over hemp enforcement this year. Officials say many retailers knew they were operating illegally. So, that gas station hemp might finally be getting some serious oversight. Authorities in Maine say enforcement against Chinese linked illegal cannabis grow houses has slowed, even though hundreds of operations have been investigated. Sheriffs say the big problem is prosecuting the cases, and many growers are now getting licensed through Maine's loosely regulated medical marijuana system, which allows some former illicit operations to slide into the legal market. Well, that is it, Mr. Weedman. It's over to you for more.
So I remembered that commercial.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, remember it was a stork,
Yes.
and he had a head
One
on
bite
instead of
out of your clawson or something.
he did the, Groucho Marx
Yeah,
voice.
yeah, yeah.
"That's the best tasting pickle. That's the best tasting pickle I ever had," or that tastes what a Vlasic can do. It was this. "That's the best tasting pickle I ever
I've ever
heard.
had,
I
yeah.
ever heard." And crunch,
Oh, heard
crunch.
crunch, crunch.
Yes, and then he had another line was crunch, crunch, or taste what a Vlasic can do.
Taste yeah, yeah,
But
that'd be
his
lit
main
more.
line, that was the best tasting pickle I ever heard, crunch, crunch." So now the owner can go, "That's the best tasting joint I ever had, smoke, smoke." Oh god, that commercial aired in 1974, the first
We
time
might
that
have to go eat
commercial
a
aired.
pickle.
I know, we do have some pickles too. Um,
I think we got Grillos,
ooh,
the good ones.
yeah. So the federal government just denied a trademark request from our homie Snoop Dogg
Yeah, what's he up to
for the
now?
phrase "smoke weed every day." Got denied. Officials said
Ah,
they can't approve
yeah, that's
cannabis-related
too
trademarks
vague.
while marijuana is still federally illegal, and also argued
Oh,
the lyric is too widely used to become one person's line.
that's right.
I think that Snoop, I love
Sorry,
you,
Snoop. You
but I'm
can't own
so glad.
everything.
Yeah, I'm so glad they didn't give you that. So yeah, one of the most famous weed lines ever apparently belongs to the people. I love it. Delaware senators just approved a bill that would allow terminally ill medical cannabis patients to use the medicine inside hospitals and healthcare facilities. Right now, many patients lose access once they're admitted for treatment. Supporters say the change is about comfort and dignity at the end of life. So, yeah, another state recognizing cannabis as real medicine. New polling data shows that cannabis consumers' community is basically just as bipartisan as the general U.S. population. In other words, people who use marijuana aren't all from one political party. The numbers show Democrats, Republicans, and independents all consume cannabis. So, yeah, weed might actually be one of the few things in America bringing everybody together. Have I always said that?
Yep.
Weed sees no political party because fuck you and your political parties and fuck the government. You all suck. So, oops,
All
sorry,
right.
my outside voice.
Say it, Mr.
A new
Weedman.
policy analysis says federal marijuana rescheduling would only be transitional step, not the finish line. Experts say moving cannabis to Schedule 3 could help with research and taxes, but the industry would still need banking access, interstate commerce rules, and criminal justice reforms. Basically, rescheduling is progress, but legalization work definitely wouldn't stop there. Virginia lawmakers, do you want to know why, Virginia?
Why?
Because Virginia is
It's
for
for
lovers.
lovers.
We should just do an episode on just old commercial lines.
Oh my god.
Could possibly happen. Virginia lawmakers are once again debating how to finally launch a legal retail cannabis market. Some legislators say regulated stores are needed to replace the growing unlicensed gray market, while others want tighter rules first. With new proposals in play and pressure building, the state's long-delayed recreational sales system might finally move forward. Virginia's cannabis rollout still a work in progress, but they're saying 2027 if everything works out. I mean, a new Massachusetts state report says the legal cannabis market is reaching most consumers, even as proposed ballot measures aims to roll back parts of the legalization. Regulators say licensed stores and products are now widely accessible across the state, Supporters argue that data proves that regulated market is working, while critics still push for tighter controls. Yet the legalization debate continues. Oklahoma lawmakers reject bill to let employers fire more workers for using medical cannabis. Uh, Hemp businesses across Ohio scrambling to stop Senate Bill 56, which could heavily restrict hemp-derived THC products. That Delta 8 and similar cannabinoids. Shop owners say the bill could wipe out a huge part of the hemp market if passed. Lawmakers argue it's about regulation, but retailers say their industry is now racing the clock. A new trend in Massachusetts cannabis shows seniors are driving a major wave of new consumers. Older adults are turning to marijuana for things like pain relief, sleep issues, and overall wellness, helping fuel the state's growing cannabis market. So, yeah, dispensaries are seeing more gray hair at the counter. Turns out retirement and cannabis might be a pretty good combo. And that's the political state and business news, everybody. Mr. Weedman,
Mr. Weedman.
this article made you mad. You know what? That makes me mad.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say mad. I would say more frustrated, right? Or did it make you mad?
Relatable
Okay,
with kind of like an element of frustration.
there you go. So most cannabis brands are built to scale, and Mrs. Weedman's going to tell us why.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, Ms.
And
Weedman.
as I read into it, now that you've just opened with that, people are like, why would this make her annoyed or bothered? And it was just because we were in the cannabis market space as soon as, I'm sure that a lot of these pop up events and things that we've gone to have been going on for a lot of years. But this entry of dispensaries getting involved in these type of events and then kind of having this mix of like like traditional grower home grower markets, and then you've got a dispensary with a table set up
Or
next
a vend
next
or a
to it, or a
supplier.
vendor, or yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just there was this kind of like blurred scenario that was happening at some of these events, and it was interesting. But my frustration comes with the way that things were growing and the speed at which things were growing and the looseness at which brands were growing and having success, but then ultimately not. But when you are trying to succeed with your company and you see them all taking these big steps and having employees and setting up shop and doing all these big things, it was discouraging because the writing wasn't on the wall for us to do that with 8 decades in the Weedman 420 Chronicles show, but we are seeing it happen with so many other businesses. But now you look and you see a lot of those businesses didn't succeed at it. So let's explain. This piece is from Green State, and it's for anybody in the cannabis space thinking about building a brand or scaling one up. I mean, let's be real. A lot of brands think that they're ready to expand. They get a good, clean logo, they get nice packaging, a little buzz in the market, maybe some revenues coming in, and suddenly they're like, oh, we got to go national, right? That's what we were seeing. But according to this article, that mindset, it's exactly where a lot of brands actually mess up. This piece breaks it down, and most cannabis brands are not actually built to scale. And the reason why? It's deeper than marketing. See, a lot of companies think scaling means copy and paste. Send your logo somewhere else, replicate the packaging, license it out, and boom, grow. But what they're saying is that that only copies the surface, right? It doesn't copy the substance, because things like your brand values, your culture, your standards, that can't just be shipped in a box. That has to be built into the foundation of the company. And when that foundation isn't there, expansion doesn't create growth. It creates delusion, not delusion, dilution.
Foundation's a big
Yes.
key. How you build a house is on a solid foundation. If you have cracks in that foundation, the house comes crumbling down.
You know what the last 2 years of the cannabis space are like? Like the 2008 and 2009 housing boom.
Oof.
Right? It's
Yeah.
all self-imploding right now.
Yep.
And what happened before that? Natural progression, right? You couldn't suddenly afford a house twice what you afforded the year before. Just like these businesses, you can't just grow just because it looks good and, it's exciting and these investors are giving you money. Well, great, you haven't built your foundation yet. So what are you going to stand on when you get big? You're going to fall apart
If you look
because
at all the
you just aren't.
financials if you look at all the financials that come out every quarter from every big major MSO vertically
Right.
integrated company, only one company is in the green.
Mhm.
Everybody's millions and dollars of lost revenue.
Well, that because it was a false growth, just like the housing crash was a false growth. This is it's a false growth when you just are backed by money and you've got CFOs and COOs that can sit at a table and put together the logistics and the finances that look amazing on paper that you're going to get to XYZ growth and place A, B, C, D, E, F, and G in 5 years, and you're going to be a multi-billion dollar company and you're going to sell off. We can all put that on paper, right? With some help,
Yep.
right? We can all make that look pretty.
Can all make the
And
numbers look shiny.
we can start if some investors gave us some money, we can start to make that kind of get into play. But at the same time, you don't just grow just because you have money backing you, because you don't have your foundation there. You don't have a story. You don't have meaning. You don't have loyalty to your brand. You're just fun advertising. And that,
That's pretty good.
and a big budget.
Yeah,
And so it just falls apart. So, sorry, I can go really far on this
I
one.
like it.
But the reality is, when the foundation isn't there, this all just does not build growth. You've probably seen it. Brands that feel solid in one market, then they expand, and suddenly the quality's inconsistent, the vibe is off, and customers start questioning it. That's not scaling. It's called stretching it too thin. This article actually pulls insight from industry experts, and one of the big takeaways is this: the brands that actually scale successfully are the ones that did the internal work first. They know exactly who they are, they know what they stand for, and more importantly, they have a system in place to make sure that identity stays consistent no matter where they go. So when they expand, it's not just about selling more products, it's about delivering the same experience every time. And that's where a lot of companies underestimate the game. Because branding in cannabis isn't just visuals, it's operations, partnerships, quality control, communication,
Hmm.
all of it. Mhm. Communication
That
in
should
the
be number
cannabis
one.
space. Oh
That should
my
be number
God.
one.
It's like I think I'm speaking a different language. Everything has to align. And if it doesn't, the customer notices. Now, there's another layer to this. Scaling in cannabis isn't like scaling a normal business. You've got different state laws, different regulations, licensing structures. So, a lot of times, expansion means working with partners or licenses in other markets. And if those partners don't fully understand your brand, they might follow your packaging, but they will miss your standards. They might sell your product, but they will not sell your experience. And that's how things fall apart. So the key message here is really about clarity and control. Before you even think about scaling you need clear brand values, defined processes, consistent product standards, and alignment across everyone involved. Because without that, growth just exposes your weaknesses faster. And honestly, this ties into a bigger theme we've seen across the industry lately. Cannabis is growing up. It's not enough to just have good weed and cool packaging anymore. The brands that are going to last are the ones operating like real businesses, structured, intentional, and built for long term consistency, not just hype. So if you're out there building something, or even if you're thinking about it, this is one of those lessons you want to learn early, not after things start breaking. Because scaling isn't just about getting bigger, it's about staying solid while you grow. And if you can do that, that's actually how you build something that will last.
Ooh.
Can't do it overnight.
No. Takes a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
Can't buy your way into everything.
Yeah.
The foundation is the key, though, to success in any business, in any industry. If you don't have it, I preach this for I can't even tell you how long when it comes to talking about building a business and building a solid foundation. I've built many brands in my time. You can ask Mrs. Weedman. I've been in a lot of businesses and I've worked a lot of industries, and the foundation is the key. If you do not have a solid, concrete foundation, what you build on top of that will crumble.
But here's the thing, too. I mean, the most simple, right? You build or you expand because the building is too small. You don't expand because you already have room,
Right.
right?
Man, that's a good one, Ms. Weedman.
Right. That was pretty good.
That's good, you should write that down.
Well, it's
International
recorded, so I'll
there you
have
go.
it for later.
International news. Oh, wait, let's smoke some more of
Okay.
A La Rose by our friend Luis, and I wanna thank him again for throwing to the cause, and this is The Art of Genetics, and I will tell you this, very nice,
Yeah.
good, clean high.
Um, high, very high, but not cloudy, like, my
That's what
thinking
I'm
is very
saying.
clear.
Good,
Yeah,
clean high.
yeah,
Smooth.
like, you could function and work and get shit done on
Yes.
this.
It said it was uplifting and not too heady for
It's a
being a
get shit done
yes, this is a
strain.
good weed I like to, like, clean the house with and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
do some
that's what I was
shit,
thinking,
yeah.
yeah, like
Mm,
putzing around the house.
mhm. So I'd like to thank the Art of Genetics for throwing to the cause to our 300th episode before we start on international news, and, very nice weed.
Very nice.
And I'm
Very
looking
nice,
yes,
very
and I'm looking it
nice.
burned clean too,
Mhm.
white ash, evenly down the joint. Nice smoke on the back of the throat, not harsh.
No,
So, I will
super
say this,
smooth.
very nice, very nice. Thank you so much for throwing us 5 other strains too.
We'll
I'm
definitely talk about
I
them on
I
the
I
show.
I'm a pig. I like to smoke good weed. What do you want me to tell you? Mm. There you go, Miss Weed Man.
Yep.
Alright. Jamaica is rolling out new regulations to help small ganja farmers to get into the legal market. Changes would allow community groups of traditional growers to cultivate up to 10 acres. Nice. Together making it easier to operate legally. Officials are also extending cultivators' licenses from 1 year to 3 years. So, yeah, Jamaica's trying to bring the small farmers into the game. At a UN drug policy meeting in Vienna, Gustavo Petro called, and is the president of Colombia, called for smarter global drug strategy, saying the old war on drugs has failed. Ooh, smart man. He argued prohibition fuels violence and organized crime and pushed for more prevention, education, and targeting criminal networks instead of just punishing users. So, yeah, even world leaders are saying it's time to rethink the system. Cannabis reform is spreading across the Caribbean, with places like Grenada moving forward, but Bermuda's legalization efforts are hitting a wall because the UK can block the law. Since Bermuda is a British territory, London has already stepped in before. So, yeah, legalization might be spreading. But colonial politics are slowing the domino effect. Hey, we had a tea party here once. So, Bermuda, you should have a weed party. New Zealand's medical cannabis industry is under serious strain. Even as patient demands keep rising fast, prescriptions have skyrocketed. Many companies are dealing with product shortages, high costs, and even businesses closures due to strict regulations and tough market conditions. So, yeah, demand is booming, but the industry itself is still struggling to keep up. After taking a short break in 2025, a World Class Cannabis Business Europe 2026, organized by World Class Business Leaders Institute, is once again set to make a comeback on the 19th and the 20th of May this year in Frankfurt, Germany. Denmark is leading the way. Markets typically go from early access and demand boom to oversupply and price drops, and then into industry consolidation where smaller players get pushed out. Ooh, I see that happening a lot in this state alone. Denmark's already hitting the stage, serving as a blueprint for Europe. So yeah, same cycle we've seen in the U.S., just playing out overseas. That's international news, everybody. And Mrs. Weeman's going to end this 300 episode with "I Love Jazz," and I've been listening to jazz for a very long time. I have a lot of good favorite artists, and when it comes to jazz music, and you heard Mr. G sing one of my favorite songs by Fats Waller, and I love blues. I love all music, but there's certain music that's like in my heart, and I feel it. You just feel it. And I could sit here on a Monday when I work on the show and just listen to jazz, instrumental, and just put the show together to jazz. It's very calming and soothing, especially when I'm high. I just love the mellowness of sitting in a chair and listening to jazz music. If you haven't experienced jazz or you don't like jazz or you think you don't like jazz, a lot of your hip hop music today that I love, as Mrs. Weeman, I'm a huge hip hop fan. I love hip hop. Been listening to it since the 70s. And jazz is in blues, you hear a lot of the beats and a lot of hip hop songs. Mrs. Weeman we were listening to some jazz the other night, and Mrs. Weeman's like, "Isn't that from this song?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's from this hip hop song." "Isn't that from this hip?" Yes, they got that track. They got that chorus or whatever. Yes, yes. So understand jazz and listen to it and dig deep into the older jazz. The 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s jazz is just so fucking good. And even from the 80s to today is really good too. But some of that older stuff is just, I mean, holy shit. I mean, you just get down. It's that good of a feeling when you listen to it. So this jazz legend was a big fan of cannabis. So tell us about it, Mrs. Weedman.
Yep, the fresh toast takes us back, way back, into the roots of cannabis culture and how it connects to jazz, as the focus here is on none other than Louis Armstrong, a true legend, not just in music, but in cannabis history too. Because a lot of people don't realize cannabis and jazz have been connected for nearly a century. Back in the early 1900s, especially in places like New Orleans and Chicago, cannabis, often called muggles or gauge at the time, was part of the culture among jazz musicians. It wasn't some hidden thing, it was just part of the creative environment. And Armstrong, he was right in the middle of that. According to the article, he didn't just casually use cannabis, he openly embraced it. He even referred to it as something positive in his life, famously saying it was 1,000 times better than whiskey.
Yeah.
Now, think about that for a second. This is during a time when alcohol was widely accepted, but cannabis was starting to be targeted and criminalized. So, for someone of his status to speak that openly about it, that was bold. And it wasn't just about getting high. For Armstrong and a lot of musicians of that era, cannabis was tied to relaxation, creativity, and social connection. It helped them unwind after long nights of performing, touring, and dealing with pressures of the pleasures too, I think, of
Mm.
the industry. And let's be real, jazz is all about feel, improvisation, rhythm, being in the moment, that mind state where you're just locked in. A lot of musicians felt cannabis helped them tap into that. This article also touches on how this whole culture led to actual music inspired by cannabis. You had songs referencing it directly, slang built around it, even entire subcultures forming around what they called vipers, basically people who smoked weed. So this wasn't just a side habit. It was woven into the scene. But here's where things take a turn. As cannabis started getting associated with jazz musicians, many of whom were black artists, it became a target. And that's when prohibition efforts really started ramping up. There were campaigns pushing the idea that cannabis led to dangerous behavior, and jazz, this new expressive, boundary pushing music, got pulled into that narrative. So you had this situation where a cultural movement was being labeled as a problem, not because of the plan itself, but because of those associated with it. And despite that pressure, despite arrests, stigma, all of it, Armstrong never really backed down. He even spent time in jail for cannabis possession, but still continued using it throughout his life. And that says a lot. Because this wasn't about rebellion for the sake of it. It was about personal choice, lifestyle, and something he genuinely believed worked for him. And when you zoom out, you start to see the bigger picture. Cannabis didn't just show up in pop culture. It's been part of American music history for decades, especially in jazz, where it helped shape not just the sound, but the vibe, the community, and the creative process. And honestly, a lot of what we see today, artists openly embracing cannabis, integrating it into their brand, their lifestyle, that all traces back to pioneers like Armstrong. They were doing it way before it was legal, way before it was accepted. So this story isn't just about a jazz legend who liked to smoke. It's about how cannabis has always been tied to creativity, culture, and pushing boundaries. And even back then, people were challenging the narrative.
Louis Armstrong,
Louis.
jazz music.
Mhm.
Ah,
Ah,
what a pleasure to
it
just
is.
sit back and just listen to it and be stoned and sit back in a
The
chair.
harmonica.
Just the
Yeah, all of it.
horns, the light
Yeah,
drums.
whatever that thing is that they put at the end of the horn and it makes it kinda higher pitched
Just so
or
much
lower.
good,
Yeah.
good music. Ms. Weedman.
Yeah, Mr. Weedman.
And just like that, episode 300 of the Weedman 420 Chronicles podcast is in the books.
Yay! Congrats, Mr. Weedman.
300 episodes deep. And Mrs. Weedman,
Mr.
you and
Weedman.
I are still here.
Yep.
You're still rolling those joints for the show.
Yep.
We're still talking cannabis with all you amazing fucking people out there that have been with me from day one to now, almost 7 years later. We appreciate every single one of you around the world, not just here in the United States, 185 countries around the world that's been rocking with us, 8,800 cities around the world. If you've listened before or still listening, or maybe heard us one time, or you listened to us, and I mean, I see where the countries are listening, and now I see cities and countries where people are listening, and you've all been rocking with us. Whether you've been here since day one, or this is the first tap you tapped in, you lit up a joint with us,
Mhm.
and this is your night. You don't even understand how deep this goes for me. And, like, it I I never thought this would we'd even make it this far.
Right.
You know? There's times where Mrs. Weedman and I put our head against the wall banging, "Is anybody out there? Is anybody" Def Leppard, "Is anybody there?"
Is this really a
And then
show?
you
Do
but
we have listeners?
and then you
What are
get
we doing?
and then you get a message from somebody that's just and I show it to Mrs. Weedman, and I answer back, and it's just like, "Oh." Like I've always said, if it's just one person, that first download, fuck you, because now I'm still here because of you. To the 100th to the 100th person downloading to now 200 something, who knows, streams and this and all the stats and all the bull. I just care that you deeply like our show and you've stuck with me through all this. And the laughs, the cries, the fun, the shitty articles, the good news, bad news, the fun news, the fucking out of control news, the stoner me fucking up so many words on in 300 shows because I can't read so good. So you stuck with this with Mrs. Weedman and I. And I thank you. So make sure you stay lit, stay informed, and keep the good energy flowing, right, Miss Weeman?
That's right.
You got anything else to say before we go?
Well, I, was a stand-in. I was supposed to be here for maybe 2 episodes, hopefully just 1. And 285 episodes later, I joined in episode 15. Here I am. Um, it's been a fun journey to watch you put the show together and stick with it and, be in these moments of doubt and just push through and continue doing it. And we always say that we like to do things the old school way, guerrilla
Guerrilla marketing.
marketing, literally like one customer at a time.
One thank you at a
Um,
time.
it's a bit of a struggle at times. We, kick ourselves, but at the same time, this is what works for us, and this is how we like to do things. So we grow organically, and we
Slow and low, that is the
that
tempo.
is that's it, man. That's it. But we are happy for any of you that stop in for one episode or stick around for a gazillion of them. Thank you. It means we're doing something and we're bringing information and impact to someone. So whether it's one person at a time or I don't know, maybe one week we'll get 10 people that listen. However growth happens, we'll
There's a
take
lot
it.
of people that listen.
And not so much for the notoriety. If anything, we're both, more internal than we are external. We don't have small personalities, but we don't necessarily love like the hoopla of being in the center of things.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'm stoned and I'm just
Yeah.
babbling and I lost my train of thought, but thank you. Thank you for sticking around and
Good reel back in.
I'm trying to reel myself back in. So thanks for sticking around and continue. Stick around for more.
We thank everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Weedman.
I love you, Mrs. Weedman. Thank you for sticking with this.
Yeah.
And everybody out there for the 300th time, I love you. Thank you for always listening. We need to go out there and live, be kind to one another, love one another. And as Paulie always says, smoke smart, puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff, pass.
Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a ninth decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.